Welcome to xYouthGroupx. I'm Ryan. This is Anthony. Taylor, as always. Today we have someone I've known about for a long time and then didn't meet until a handful of years ago. Somebody who, without this guy, this podcast would not exist. Because a lot of these bands that we've talked to and talk about don't exist. Chad Johnson, good to see you.
Hey.
Good friend of mine. Chad, if you don't know, very early on, which if you've watched this podcast, you know. But Chad was the A&R. Well, you could go back to Take Hold, but Chad was the A&R for the longest time at Tooth and Nail. Then Chad started Come and Live, then went on hiatus.
Yeah.
And then came back with Furnace Fest, which was yours from the jump. Mm-hmm. And that's the synopsis. So
that's the short and sweet. You killed it.
Before we even get into any fun things, you're really good about this. Who's the band that you're listening to right now?
Oh, man. Who's the band I'm listening to right now? Well, this weekend I was listening to a bunch of hardcore because I was at a festival called LDB in Louisville. Mind Force is still a band that I'm really loving.
I remember.
But for the sake of this podcast,
sure,
the new John Mark McMillan is incredible.
Yeah,
Steven tracked that.
Oh, did?
Yeah, because they did all the church shoot stuff. And,
It's such a great record.
I've listened to parts of it. I haven't heard it all.
It's the first time in a very long time that I've listened to a worship record and actually enjoyed it all the way through.
He hasn't made a worship record.
No, I know. And the story behind it's really cool.
Yeah. I've seen some of it.
Didn't he say he never really wanted to release worship stuff again, and it just kind of was an awesome thing how it kind of came around?
Yeah.
The best thing you can do to God is tell him you don't want to do something.
Yeah, this is very true.
I've learned that so many times.
But I also the other one I'm thinking of is Steven Wilson Jr.
Oh, bro, come on.
He's so good.
He,
absolutely
Iron Hills guy?
Yes.
Okay.
He's a secret Iron Hills guy. But for the sake of this podcast, we'll give away secrets.
Oh.
But he's
I'm always down to give away.
He was in North Carolina this past weekend.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's just next level.
Never heard of him.
Wow.
But,
seriously?
No.
Dude.
He's in Nashville. Well, I think he's from Indiana originally, but he's probably been in Nashville.
But you know this.
The national anthem for the draft, actually.
Yeah.
The NFL draft.
It's phenomenal, dude.
I thought that was Fergie.
His voice is like, once you hear it, it's unmistakable.
What's your favorite song? Do you have one?
Probably, what's the one? Grief is only love.
Or
maybe 1994.
Yeah, that's my first one I ever heard. So good.
So I feel like all of that. Well, there's a few that I'm kind of like, okay, but
I like country, 90%
Chad. Of them, dude. I've never actually listened to country in my life.
Okay,
hardly, except for when I worked.
Does
for
Maylene count?
They don't really count.
Okay,
but that is true. I did listen. I have listened to Maylene.
That's close enough.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, let's go in.
Okay.
All right. So the whole purpose of this podcast, I kind of told you this, it's all about Christian music business. And there's no one I can think of more on the business side of it than you. And you've talked about this plenty of times, so I don't want to necessarily go into like the history of Take Hold, how the merge and all that other stuff comes. Take me more through, at least to start, when you had Take Hold, how ministry minded was Take Hold to you?
That's a great question. I think it started very ministry minded. I think that like my intentions and my desires were very much to somehow be like a more Christian version of Tooth and Nail.
Okay.
I think because I sort of saw Tooth and Nail at that time as a little bit of a pseudo Christian label, because so many of the artists weren't very transparent about their faith or obvious maybe in their lyrics about faith. Sure. Even though I liked all the bands, I don't know. I think I was a very fresh out of college, judgmental kind of Christian person, who was like, oh, I'm going to create the more Christian version of Tooth and Nail. And I think that curse kind of stayed with me for quite some time actually. But towards the end of Take Hold, I had largely fallen away from the Lord and was not really interested in anything Christian and was more interested in smoking weed and porn and just anything that would basically satisfy fleshly desires. And so I think even though that was, I was definitely a conflicted person and struggled to to know what the vision, which is something that now that I look back on my life historically has been a struggle, is like, how do I maintain the course, or like I might have a vision for something, and as long as it's exciting, I can stay equally passionate and excited. And as soon as it sort of loses its interest in my heart or for others, then I, pretty quickly I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? I'm ready. This is too hard. I'm ready for the next thing.
I don't know anyone better at finding the next thing than you, though.
Oh man, I'm in that season right now where I'm basically asking, myself, what is the next thing? Like what's next? And it's funny that you say that, because I feel like when I look back, it's so obvious, and every step was kind of, it was like the way was made very obvious and very apparent like as I look back, but in the middle, when I'm kind of in the middle of the waters being parted, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense and really didn't add up. And, but yeah, I definitely tribute all of the different things that I've been a part of to the grace of God and the way that he's worked in and through my life. And that doesn't mean that I do very good at trusting in the times like this, where I'm like, what does the next look like? And what does purpose look like? And what does passion look like when you're 51 and not really sure? But I am incredibly grateful for the opportunities that God's given me. It's shocking to think back on them.
Okay. If you think back, so Take Hold, obviously a big faith component initially.
Yep.
When you're looking at, not necessarily Take Hold, well, maybe Take Hold Fest, bands, things you're doing with those bands, like what kind of, let's just go from the band's perspective for a second. What were you looking for, like in a faith aspect from those bands? Because you said you were looking for a more, quote, Christian version of Tooth and Nail. Mm-hmm. What were those things you were looking for?
I think that I had hoped that the bands we worked with would, for the large part, carry maybe a stronger influence for the Christian faith, or whether that would be in their lyrics, in what they said during or around their performance, and in how they lived their lives on and especially off stage. But it's funny looking back, because I don't think there was ever anything that was like in writing or as part of the like signing process that was like, hey, under oath, I really want you guys to, it very much was an organic expression of who the artist was. And I wasn't trying to like shape, in the same way that I never as an A&R person tried to shape artists to be something that they weren't, even though a few times I maybe felt pressured to do that, and it never worked out in my favor.
Guidance.
Yeah. Like, I think this song, you should really add an extra chorus, or like, I was never that person. And I just felt like artists, like they were the creatives for a reason. And I was more on the business side or the back end, but.
Lord, I wish you'd go around Nashville telling people that. Oh my gosh. Everyone there is, they'll if they can get one line or one sentence in to get a credit, they'll do it in a second.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. That felt like it was taking away from. I mean, it was the rare occasion where I felt like I should interject.
Yeah, this isn't the one. Or So from let me say, there's an under thing I want to touch later once we get to Tooth and Nail, because you brought it up, but I want to touch it later. When you go to merge with when you go to like go over to Tooth and Nail. Mm-hmm. Do you have the thought and conversation then with Brandon Stoner of Tooth and Nail?
Yeah,
do you have the like conversation with him then of like, hey, I want to be more ministry minded, or is your head not back in that space?
No. I mean, at that point, I was just really, really excited that somebody got me out of debt, and that I was able to have a role in music that I didn't deserve, and that I had not anticipated. And I think just being able to leave Birmingham for a city as beautiful as Seattle, no offense, Birmingham, but Johnny. Yeah, Johnny and the team. It was just like, I think it was the first time in my life where I was able to be a provider for my wife and our daughter. And I think that was a extremely powerful moment.
Totally
for me.
different feeling.
Very different feeling than like I'm continuing to struggle through how in the world to make all this work. Yeah. And so at that point, I wasn't really at all thinking about the ministry side. And I was still very, very much kind of in my own head and just very at that point, by that time, I had largely swung away from having any interest. And I mean, I would still probably have said like, I really love it when bands are ministry minded and are very Christ focused, but I was never, at that point, very interested in how I could help them or really making that a priority.
What's tough, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, there's a line, you know this, there's a line that separates, even with like pop punk and emo and all this other stuff, there's a line that separates the CCM artists that do that and the people on the other side, which play this kind of music, that the music might be Christian, they might be Christian. There's a line that separates those people. And what's interesting to me to kind of hear you talk about this is with this side of the line, it's only ever about that. And I feel like you never get to authentically know who these people are. And on this side, as things got bigger, it created the same effect. Because we'll go here now and then come back. With Under Oath specifically, I believe, you obviously know them way better than I do, I believe there was so much pressure built up on them to be a certain thing. Not to say that none of them are justified in what they believe now, but I would almost be curious. That's the right word. I would be curious to know if any of this happens if they don't have the same pressure. If they don't like build with this constant, like, because I've heard the Warped Tour stories of the like prayer circles or the meets where Spencer would go in and confess everything he did the day before, and then the next day would be the same thing. And you know, but like and then obviously I heard that there was people, I can't remember what the band was that was like essentially bullying them.
Oh, NoFX.
NoFX. That's what it was. I was like, I can't remember. But essentially, like, there you have these two pulls and these pressure. And I almost look at, you know, when the change happened for them, I was like, well, duh. Like, you guys just slammed these people for the longest time, and you put these insane expectations on them. And then when people crack and they break because they're people, you get furious at them and you like, I hate this. These guys were never this. They just, you know, and it's just like, man, you're forgetting the whole point here. Like, these are people. So I kind of, it's interesting to me how much of like mindset with yours, with picking these bands out, was like, how important was their faith? How important was, because obviously you can go to a Beloved, to a Joe Mustin, and super important to that guy. Like, that guy has been consistent in a rock, you know,
indeed,
for forever. And then you have like someone like the Juliana Theory. I'm sure you've seen the videos. So yeah, let me ask you that: is that real? Like, was there contracts?
What part real?
Okay, so to paraphrase, I'm sure, they would say that there was like certain, essentially morality clauses in their tooth and nail contract.
Okay. Get that lead by example document.
Yeah, nice. Is that what it was?
I don't know.
That's my
I like that.
Right.
I mean, I want to say there probably was.
Right.
I don't recall like whether that. I don't know if that was all of them. I'm not sure if that was like a period of contracts, and I don't. But I do seem to have a recollection that was the case, and for sure that pressure that Under Oath and other artists felt was it was sort. I think like if an artist gave the impression that their faith was something that they were very serious about, then it's like the Christian community then would like attach all of their expectations and all of their need for a savior and the encouragement to continue following Jesus on that band.
Right.
And then it's like, how do you actually live? It'd be like a boss constantly telling you, do more, deliver more, perform better.
And you're year after year beating every record.
It's like, how do you actually thrive in that kind of a environment?
Sure.
It's hard to live under a microscope like that.
Yeah.
For so long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't know if
You can't
anyone's
be
ever
human anymore.
No.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know if anyone's ever said this to him, but the Aaron post under oath trying to do the worship thing with struggling with all of that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's honestly very admirable. Like, I look at it and I'm like, dude, I give you all the flowers in the world because you tried going through all of this. And it's like, I understand. I think when we started this podcast, our goal was to not make it like a deconstruction thing, because that's the Emery route. That's the Emery thing. But to look at someone like them, I understand it, but I'm so like, I feel like should be a lot more grace with it.
Yeah.
Because of the pressure that we as listeners, me as a 12-year-old Define the Great Line, being like, Mom, this is my new favorite Christian band, or Grandma, this is my new favorite Christian band. This is good. I bought this at Lifeway, so there's nothing wrong with these people, and you can hold up the wall to them, like they're fine. And that's on us as the listeners. Like, that's on us, and not saying that we created a bad situation, but in a way, we sure didn't help.
Right.
So I'll ask you something. I'll ask you something fun. Was there ever a moment when you were at Tooth and Nail? I know I have two stories I want to ask you about. Let's get this one first. So we talked to Joe. We did our only other guest episode that is out so far is Joe.
Cool.
And we mentioned something you and I have talked about before, which is roadside records.
Oh, that's funny.
You want to tell that story?
Well, I mean, Roadside Records was the funny way in which I think we as a Tooth and Nail team would blow off steam at the end of a Cornerstone day.
Yeah.
And we would, I think it was a box, although maybe I'm making that part up, but throughout the day we would have countless bands that would give us their music to check out. And so we would just end up with like piles of CDs. And I don't know if I think it was just CDs. I don't think it was tapes, although maybe it was. But so on the way back to the hotel, we would listen, and we would put a CD in, and usually we would listen for like 30 seconds, and it would, or maybe it was a minute. It was like some really short amount of time. And if you grabbed our attention during that time, then we would keep listening. Yeah. And if not, then we would take it out and like throw it into the cornfield, which was not exactly very good for the environment, or the farmers, but it was fun. I remember thinking like that was a really great way to end the day.
Could you imagine a farmer just like, let's haste the day?
Yeah. No, that would have been one that we're like, whoa. I don't think there were any that I can recall that went from that.
I was about to ask you that. Yeah.
Like that actually turned into a Haste Today or a Amberlin.
Was there anyone that got a call from that?
I don't think so.
Dang.
I don't think so.
That's
I think it's like it's so hard because most of the time bands that we were discovering were already coming to us by way of other bands.
Sure.
So it's like once you have a good thing going, then everyone's kind of looking out for the art, and there's a sense of pride over what, like Steve Christian discovers Showbread, and it's like, hey,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he was I think he was in Seattle either recording an album or maybe there, like very, very early Anne Berlin days, was in Seattle for a season. Yeah. And was interning or was just like, hey, I'm here and I want to hang out. So it's like, I'll go through the demo pile. And he found Showbread through the demo pile. And
I love Showbread.
Yeah, it was like, hey, I think these guys are actually kind of interesting.
Yeah. Interesting is a good word for Showbread.
Yeah. But I could be wrong, but I don't recall there being any artists that came from Roadside Records to Tooth and Nail. But yeah, maybe.
During your time at Tooth and Nail, Was there? We can skip this if you want. Was there ever a band that you were like that you fought for that you wanted that just didn't quite? It didn't click for them.
Oh, there were quite a few. Joan Zetta is the one that comes to mind immediately.
Wow, I feel like I know that name.
Get Ready Like a Hot Machete. Dude, they were such a great band.
Okay.
They should have been, and we thought, if I'm not mistaken, we gave them the biggest advance and like the best deal that we had ever given like a baby band.
Dang.
But they just
That's
they
usually
put out
the
two
code for-
records and then
Yeah.
like they broke up. And I think Terminal was another one that was kind of along that same time frame. Terminal only put out one record and then broke up. And Beloved is like the quintessential
Yeah, he told
example
me
of
they
that.
signed a 6-record deal or something.
Five,
Multiple,
maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It probably would have been
I
multiple.
said, Joe, where are
records.
those at? And he's like,
As Cities Burn was
no,
one.
I wouldn't classify that. They definitely had their moment.
They did, but in our minds, you have to keep in mind, like
From
we were
numbers,
and we were looking at them as like Under Oath Junior. So
That's fair.
Under Oath had blown up. Son, I Loved You at Your Darkest. Whatever came after Son, I
record.
Loved You at Your Darkest
Yeah.
was in our minds going to be They're Only Chasing Safety Part 2.
Okay.
And so when it wasn't, it was sort of like oh man, like you guys had all the magic and then you kind of ruined it. Even though that's not how I feel now, I think that's how, as a label, we would have seen it from a business standpoint. And it just goes to show you that there's, in the business world, there's always that like tug and pull between artists being creative and being themselves and expressing themselves and the need to have highly commercial, very sellable albums.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no business, and then and there's no creatives.
Well, then you have bands that like. So I would listen to. Did you listen to Chris Dudley on CCM magazine?
I did actually. No, I did. I was like, why did I? Yeah, I did. I listened to the whole thing. Yeah, it was really cool.
He said that everyone's just expecting them to do They're Only Chasing Safety Part 2,
Right.
And
Same-
to find the
yeah,
to find the great line was like this big like this might be the end of Under Oath, and turns out to be like the most incredible, groundbreaking metalcore Christian metalcore record, arguably ever.
Yeah.
But sometimes you swing for the fences and you knock it, and sometimes you're on the back of the bench. Okay, what was the one that surprised you? Who was like, good band coming in, you remember picking them up, but you're like, I don't know if they'll ever get to the thing, and then they have something that's just like, whoa.
I mean, probably the most obvious example that I can think of on the fly would have been Anne Berlin.
That's what I was thinking.
Because for me, I remember seeing them live at their first or second or like very, very early show.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling Brandon that we should not. I remember calling him and like on my old Sprint mobile, like huge phone. I remember telling him like we should not sign them. They're not very good. He's like, yeah, but they have hits. And I was like, okay. So
aren't you good friends with Steven?
So he recognizes, or he recognized something at that point that I couldn't, and he taught me a really important lesson, which is that it's potential is more valuable than performance, especially at a very young.
I was watching, just mindlessly scrolling on TikTok last night before I went to sleep. Have you ever seen the Harry Styles audition?
No, but I love that you're still scrolling on TikTok.
So he sings "Hey Soul Sister," and it's not good. And Simon goes, everyone else wants to boot him. Simon goes, sing something else without the track. Sounds incredible. Sounds like Harry Styles. Changes the whole thing. There's some people, people like Simon Cowell for a great example. Some people get this like horrible, like, how does this guy know anything? He can't sing. Some people have this gift, and I believe you have this gift of just being able to hear something and just be like, there's something there.
Yeah.
And that's way harder than anything else in music. Technically, anyone can write a song. Technically, anyone could play an instrument. Some do it better than others. But to be able to like find and pinpoint those things, that's why I say I think you're the reason this podcast exists. You're the most important person in this, like arguably in this space, because you had a gift that is insane to just like. You're the Barry Bonds.
Well, dude,
the Mark McGuire.
Well, I mean I think that immediately what comes to mind is how many times that gift didn't translate.
Sure.
But I do recognize that there was part of it for me. If I was someone listening to this thinking about like, man, I want to be in the music industry, or I would love to be an A&R, I would love to work with artists. I think it was more about time. Like they say there's a phrase, it's like time in the market is more important than timing the market.
Yeah.
And I think as it comes to investment,
Chad over here.
Yeah, crypto advice. I do think that there's something to be said about that. Like it was both time in the scene and timing the scene.
Yeah.
That was, I'm not convinced that I could right now go out and just
Pick
be
10
like,
bands.
I'm going to replicate.
Yeah.
My gift is so strong that I
Yeah.
could just I think it actually had much more to do with where I was and what was going on around me than the fact that I was super gifted. But when I heard a band like The Operation, and I thought, okay, this band is really cool. But then their spin-off band becomes Me Without You.
Okay.
And I see them live. Yeah. It's just like, well, it wasn't like, had someone sent me a demo and I was just random director of A&R at some record labels living somewhere in Hollywood or something, I don't know that I would have seen the potential, and that probably wouldn't have.
Right.
But it was because I was boots on the ground, like in that world, consuming it all the time, promoting bands, booking bands, going to shows. It was, I think, anyway.
To slightly detour, do you think now it's just as important to have people on the ground? Like, should an A&R be doing that still, or is social media such king at this point? Because you know this as well as I do, it's all about numbers now. It doesn't matter. And I've told other people in rooms and stuff like that, I'm like, you want numbers? I can have those tomorrow. That's not hard.
Yeah.
But what's real is what you're talking about. And I feel like, especially maybe on the like pop, and I know on the countryside, some people are getting bit in the ass because they keep signing these dudes who've got 500,000 followers, but they're terrible live. They can't write, they can't play their instrument, they can do it good enough for the camera,
right?
But that's it.
Well, and you and I both know that metrics on social media are relatively easy to purchase these days. So, you can give off the impression that you're this massive monstrosity of an artist and then only draw 20 people or less for any given night, because you're actually not. You figured out some way to cheat the system. So I guess
I'm good at.
Yeah, we buy all of ours.
my answer would be it's a both and. Like it's both the numbers and the social media and the Spotify's and all that, but it's also going out and seeing, because I think if you're probably not going out to a lot of shows, you're probably going to miss somebody anyway.
Right. But, all right, let's go back. Tooth and Nail. So what's your last year at Tooth and Nail?
It was January of 2009.
Okay, I was thinking 2008, but 2009, yeah, it's about the same time frame. What was I don't know if you ever said this, at least that I know of, what was the reason you were like, all right, I think my season here is, I'm out of season?
I think it was twofold. One was that kind of judgmental, but packaged up in a whole lot of passion, which was there, like a whole lot of genuine energy that wanted to see more of God's kingdom expressed through artists than what I was able to do in theory at Tooth and Nail.
So wait, when does that circle back for you? Because you're going into Tooth and Nail, you've kind of pulled from that.
Yeah, that.
So what point do you re-engage?
That's a whole nother conversation. I think the easiest way to put my finger on the pulse of that time was driving into the Tooth and Nail offices one day, which would have maybe the end. I don't know exactly. 2004, 2005, somewhere between or around They're Only Chasing Safety.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Was when I was driving into the office and I just felt like God asked me the question, like the most audibly I've ever heard him talk to me, and it wasn't audible, but it felt like it was so loud in my heart. Like, and the question was just, why are you fighting me? And it felt like, and like instantly I just broke down weeping, like uncontrollable weeping, driving along the viaduct. And I'm like, I see the city skyline over here on my right, and like the beautiful Puget Sound on my left. And I was in bumper to bumper traffic. And that's when someone introduced me to John Piper's book, Don't Waste Your Life. And it was like a combination. It was like a deadly combo of, and so that really, the
reform will hit you hard,
dude,
boy.
it was the curse of Piper and Don't Waste Your Life that I think really, but it was like Don't Waste Your Life. And then a lot of people like Timmy from Under Oath and Aaron from Me Without You, a lot of people were simultaneously really consuming Shane Claiborne's Irresistible Revolution and like spending a lot of time trying to reconcile what faith looked like to the poor and to the broken and to the needy. And so I think there were already a lot of people ahead of me asking great questions and wrestling with really heavy topics. But I think that so that was like the reason I said there was two things. I think that was like the one side where I did genuinely desire to please God and to serve God and to advance God's kingdom. But I think on the other side, I was also fearful that my career and my experience was kind of hitting its peak, and that I was ready to do something else, and I should do something different. And I think that as I look back, I recognize that throughout my life, I've struggled routinely with fear of things not working out. So some people deal with, fear of missing out. I deal with fear of things not working out, which is because of the way you open this whole episode up. It's really ironic, because once again, I find myself in that season of life where I struggle with the fear of things not working out. And it's almost always at either the peaks of my life or the troughs of my life that are those two extremes really mess with me.
It's the market, like you're saying. It's like when do I sell or when do I buy?
Totally. It's those two extreme. When things are kind of in the middle and just everything's kind of working out, I guess I don't seem to. But
it's a cool way to put it.
Usually, in using the markets analogy, when you're feeling fear at the bottom, is the time to buy, not sell. You know, it's like the Warren Buffett idea. But at the top, it's like you're feeling great. I do struggle a lot with regret and the question mark over what if I had never left Seattle. Or what if I had not left? What if I had not put in my notice with tooth and nail? Like,
interesting.
What if I had not moved to Nashville? And it's not so much because I regret everything that came after. It's more because of
just a what if.
Yeah, like a what if. Because of
do you think you'd still be at tooth and nail?
I don't know. I mean, it seems a little hard to imagine that all these years. But who knows? Maybe. I mean, or maybe there would have been some other opportunity or something. But
I imagine when the fall off came, like 2012-ish era, like I feel like that's when I can't imagine you're there that long and then you don't get scooped by a capital or somebody at that point in time.
I guess I just kind of wonder, what if I had, because it was like God had already given me the most incredible platform on the planet to be a part of. And I kind of wonder if instead of me abandoning ship and starting something else, like what if I would have just stayed the course and applied what I was learning and the passion and the excitement and the energy that I had to where I continue to apply it where I already had all the favor, all the relationships, all the opportunities, all the connections,
all the backing.
Like what if I would have, instead of starting a Come and Live, what if I would have brought Ascend the Hill into something like Where the Glorious Unseen was, or the Ember Days into.
Yeah, that would have been a cool, kind of how you have Solid State, the spinoff of Tooth and Nail. If Come and Live was a branch of.
Yeah, and then maybe it would have been possible for us to have signed the Hillsong Uniteds, not the Hillsong United, the United Pursuits, or the John Mark McMillans, or the Josh Garrels, or I just kind of wonder if had we had I been more inclusive with the idea and less exclusive.
That's a crazy thought.
Yeah, like had I, instead of like, okay, guys, you're not Christian enough, and what you have at Tooth and Nail isn't glorifying God enough, so I need to leave you and put my family through enormous financial strain right at the beginning of the great financial recession,
right?
Or the Great Recession, I think is what they term it. Right as that was
2008, 2009. Yeah,
right as that's beginning, I'm like, peace, I'm out of here. Like, I mean, if you actually look at some of my timing, it's the worst possible timing for anything you could have probably done. But I wonder that often, what life might have looked like had I actually been more inclusive and more supportive, and just recognizing that it's hard enough to be a Christian, let alone to do that in the context of music and industry and all that. And had I been softer and more compassionate and more understanding and more, and I just think historically I've been a narcissist, and that it's
crazy to hear you say.
Yeah, but it's a curse that's hidden itself very well. But I do think that it as I look back, and maybe part of this is as you get older, as a 51-year-old, you have this amazing, and I've now been a part of an addiction recovery program for 6+ years, where like almost weekly or very consistently, you're kind of reviewing character defects as a normal part of your process towards healing. And so it's a lot easier now to be like, oh, wow, I was a damn narcissist.
Yeah, you can.
That's why I left Tooth and Nail, because I was a narcissist, not because I was a super spiritual child.
All right, then let me poke the bear. Do you think part of the reason you left and you want to start your own thing, because, again, I believe it, but I believe your hype. Do you think you believed your hype too much?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude, and that's any good narcist. They're gonna drink their own.
What's a bad narcissist?
Right. I mean, the good.
Dude, I know you're trying, but you suck at this.
The bad narcissist would recognize that the Kool-Aid that they're sipping isn't very very worthwhile. But for sure, and I think that. But
that's crazy.
I don't think it's ever a like one side. It's like a good vinyl record. It's got two sides.
Sure.
And how many records only have a side? Not many.
Right.
So it's not like there wasn't a genuine desire within me to serve God, to please God, to live a much more focused effort towards all things kingdom and an expression of loving God and loving people. But I just wonder if I went about it in all the wrong ways.
Two things can be true.
Yeah.
You can want things with the best intentions and selfishly want things at the same time. I do that all the time. Yeah. It's literally what I do.
It's Ryan's MO.
Yeah, it's kind of a whole deal.
Oh gosh,
that's crazy,
Can I
dude.
ask a question?
Yeah, go.
I mean, I feel like one of the best things about talking to people, and especially I think we all find people we actually connect with, and when they say the same thing you've heard 1,000 times, you're like, oh. So one of my favorite things right now is not the Christendom white moms thing in their kitchen that says faith over fear. I think it's the idea that they coexist, right? That it's what do you do with that fear and where do you take it? So at this point in your life, you say you're in that season again. Do you feel like it is a struggle with something that's where do you take the fear, or do you feel like it's kind of the MO of when season changes are coming, it draws you to, I've seen this before, because I feel like half the things when I'm like, oh my God, I do this when I'm in this place, my joke is it's how much more quickly can I go, oh my gosh, I'm doing the cycle again. I'm back in it again. Do I get to it quicker this time, or am I slow? I don't know if that's the best way to ask it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're asking, and that's a great question. I would like to think that I'm able to get to it faster now than in times past.
You're in finish. You ain't got much time left.
I know, man. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure that I actually do. I mean, I think that I had a really crazy experience a few weeks back, maybe a month or so ago. I was driving home here in Chattanooga from the barber shop, and there's a beautiful route up on this like hillside. It's actually
Everything's beautiful here.
It is beautiful. It's
Literally,
a beautiful
we saw
city.
this lake when
It's
we were
amazing.
driving
in.
I love
I
the
was like,
city,
look
but
Gosh.
but this ridge is called Missionary Ridge, and I think that it's always it's sweet because the view is beautiful, but also because it reminds me of who I've desired to be, even though oftentimes I feel like I've fallen short. But I was driving up there and I just had this thought like, man, dude, I'm stuck and I just don't know, like I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go forward. I don't know how. It's like, yeah, I have this thing that I'm a part of, or maybe I'll do this thing, but I just remember like having this conversation with God that like, God, I just feel lost. And it feels so weird as someone who was so, had always felt like I left Tooth and Nail guns a-blazing and with so much excitement and so much like, I knew that I knew what I was doing. And it's so strange over the course of the last few years to have found myself driving up Missionary Ridge like, God, I'm just lost. And I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what's next. I don't know how to like navigate this season. And I just started crying, man. Like just, I can feel like tears, like wanting to seep out now. And I've been in a season where I don't cry. Yeah. And I remember in the Come and Live days, like I was, because I was around people like Joel and his family.
Oh yeah.
They could just cry. Right now, if
That's
Joel
them
was
Pentecostals,
here,
boy.
if any of them were here and they saw me like that, I guarantee you they'd start crying. And I would instantly start crying.
Zach Genesillo is one of those.
And it was
too.
beautiful. And I've never been around people like that before, that just like, they could just talk and all of a sudden everyone's crying, and it was so healthy and normal and right. But I think that what to complete that picture, me driving up Missionary Ridge and the lost thing, I got a call from my brother, maybe it was either later that day or the next day, who I was about to go see in Arkansas, and he had been with this like Native American charismatic friend of his. So and he told this like his friend a little bit about me and just like, hey man, can you like just pray for my brother? You know, he's like going through a hard time trying to figure out, you know, what to do with his life. And this guy starts talking. He just said, yeah, you know, I don't want to mimic him because it'd be kind of racially inappropriate, but so that's not what I'm trying to do. But in a very strong, in a very strong and unique,
I thought you were going to say blasphemous for a second.
No,
it's like a prophetic thing.
A very a very strong accent.
Yeah.
He starts out by saying he's lost. And I was just like, I'm listening to this voice audio recording. And I was just like, whoa, that's so crazy. Because I just like either a few hours or like a day ago was having this conversation about how I'm lost. And so I guess maybe the most important part of this recording will be for all those people who think that they had figured it out and now find themselves, whether it's because of career or because of faith or because of family or because of economic, you know, like the political system or anything, they feel lost. I think it's I guess 6 years of recovery has taught me that it's okay to say I feel lost and I don't know what the next season will bring or what it will look like, and I don't think I'm alone, and I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of other people that probably are like, man, I resonate with that, you know, and life's really hard right now, and it's challenging to kind of figure out what's up and what's down, and but I guess the beauty for me is that I have hit, to answer you, to put a what's that called?
Pin?
To put a pin. Is that? I don't think that's the right.
As I close this sermon.
As I close the sermon, no.
The band will come up
to finish to try to finalize an answer to a great question. I think that I have once again found myself at one of those crossroads where I'm just like, God, I have no idea if what I'm doing right now is where I'm supposed to be, or if it's right, or if
You got to help me out, big dog.
yeah. I wish I could say this was the first time. I have been here many times, and there is a part of me that just like one thing we talk about in sobriety is that we try to white knuckle sobriety, which is basically you just try really hard. You know, if it's alcohol, if it's lust, like is my case, or any anything. You know, it's just like okay, I'm not gonna go to the bar. I'm not gonna go to the bar. I'm not gonna go to the bar. And then maybe you can do that for a season, but then something happens. In this case, I think it's like I've been trying to white knuckle my way into forcing doors and making stuff happen, and just like, and it just feels like
Burning
nothing.
you out.
Yeah, it just feels like nothing's working the way that I thought it would, and surrender is the only option.
There's a Furnace Fest side of this that I want to touch, but I want to stay with the Come and Live because we'll get to the Furnace Fest stuff. To slightly lighten the mood, Great Awakening's making their first record.
I was like, whoa. I was like, they are? And then, oh, wait a minute.
Great Awakening's making their first record.
Great Awakening's back.
Gosh, what was the name of Elijah's studio? I can't remember. Threshing Floor.
Yeah.
And Elijah Mosley's producing it, which, for those of you who know, means Jacob was doing most of the work. Shout out Jacob Early. I love that guy. And Elijah tells them about a guy named Chad Johnson who could be potentially interested in their music. That's the first time I heard your name.
Wow.
That's how I found out about you. Obviously, it clicked once I figured out all the tooth and nail stuff later on, but no idea who you were until that day. And Zach,
what was the first thought when you heard that? What did you imagine what I looked like, and if so, what did I look like to you?
I don't know. I didn't think about that. But it's probably just someone that would be friends with Elijah. So I guess I'm not too far off.
Yeah, right.
But no, I remember thinking like, this is crazy because they're picking up my friend's band, and this guy, knowing nothing about you, it's like this guy has picked some insane of my favorite bands. Why are they picking my friends? They're terrible. No, it's just funny because I was like, this is crazy. And then I see Ascend the Hill and all these other bands that come from it. Obviously, as time goes on, but that was my first knowledge of you was that. And I remember thinking at the time, and again, like at this point in time, we're done listening. We're not listening to Mayday Parade anymore. We're not listening to Emery anymore. We're listening to John Mark. Listen to Mark Mathis if you want to be super Charlotte about it. We're listening to Ascend the Hill. We're listening to what's the first Ascend the Hill record called? The one with the cross on it.
Yeah, first Ascend the Hill record.
Oh gosh.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Insanely underrated record. That's the one with like Sing and Joy and all. Yeah. Oh man. Anyways,
So good.
So it's like we're listening to like we're coming into that era, and to hear your name, to hear the like thought you'd put like into Come and Live. I thought at that moment that this was going to be. It was to me round two. Like you were going to pick all these bands that I'm just like, God, I love everything this band puts out, which is essentially how I feel about Emery. And like, I just like, or Amberlin, like I thought it was like, you're going to find them again. And you called Great Awakening wrong, but other than that,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Not
I think
true.
Great Awakening.
there's one
was
song that I
incredible.
will, there's one song that I will die on.
Album
Yeah.
that
Songs
they-
in Secret.
Yep.
Dude,
Perfect
wow,
record.
what an
What's your song?
incredible record.
For Songs in Secret.
Yeah. No, mine is.
Lazarus probably.
Oh, that's my number 2.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Maranatha.
Wow.
That's mine
All
too.
day.
I used to pronounce it Maranatha.
There's something about the way. I mean, if you know Zach too, like we make fun of him a lot, but we love him dearly. But I mean, just the way that he even like chord shapes in his tuning, his secret tuning, and that is just
He's a crier,
somehow
too.
it communicated so much more than just a freaking random tuning.
Those were dudes too that at that time frame. All right, yeah. So we're going into Come and Live. A lot of those guys, Ascend the Hill, Great Awakening. It was As City's part of Come and Live at one point. I know Showbread was.
Yes, that's where I first heard of him.
I don't think
Really?
was.
Dead serious, dude.
Same.
I
Wait,
was
that-
What?
for what?
Showbread.
Oh, that's how you know them?
Like all of my friends were hardcore kids, and I was not. I was the indie worship kid. So when Come and Live happened, I was like, for me. It's amazing.
Oh man, you missed Mouth Like a Magazine and all
Yeah.
that.
I remember listening to
that was-
Showbread, and I was like, "What in the hell is this? Oh my god,
This isn't Christian.
crazy.
This isn't it.
Wow.
My mom would not let me
Oh,
listen.
she did not.
Yeah. So, but you go to like all those types of dudes, and those are like vastly different from assumption of people I know. Vastly different, like spiritual people. Like you have guys like. To go back to the Warped Tour thing, you have the like, okay, we'll do our circle and the time. No, that's not what's happening at a Ascend the Hill show or a Great. Like, oh, our set's 30 minutes. Yeah, right. This is a 4-hour altar call. Like we're bringing it today, and it created what was interesting. If you look at like the John Mark era, all that time, it created these like worship night. Like that's where, in my opinion, that's where worship nights come from. It's bands like those that would play Carolina Theater, or like we're just going to show up and play a random show. That was the origin of like, we're going to throw a worship night to me, because those shows just turned into those. So it's interesting to hear you talk about like the difference of your emotional attachment just now in life, but also when we think back about those bands, because they're, correct me if I'm wrong, such polar opposites as far as like emotional, I don't know if availability is the right word, but just like willingness to be open about just faith in general, other than, yeah, we're a Christian, man. If you want to talk to us, we'll pray with you. Like, I can't imagine Joel praying with someone back then for 5 minutes, like a sinner's prayer. Like you were getting the Holy Spirit fire. Like you were getting baptized that day.
Absolutely.
So you go to Come and Live. Talk me through, who's the first band you signed for Come and Live?
Oh man, I want to say it was Ascend the Hill. It was either Ascend the Hill or the Ember Days, but
Yeah.
but now as I think about it, I can't recall which album
Close
was like
enough,
the first
yeah.
one. It could have been something. It could have been something else. Now as I'm trying to envision the website.
Oh, dude, I remember that website.
where we
I've been
had the
doing that
MP3s living
Yeah,
for people
dude.
to
I'd
download.
just go see who was new.
Yeah. I remember seeing Great Awakening on there, and I was like, "Dag, my friends are famous." Zach, let me hold $10.
Yeah, dude, they are famous. They're great.
Okay, wait, hold on. That joke makes me a good point. So, let me hold $10. Come and Live is a very different business platform than anything else. Why?
Well, back then there wasn't, or ironically, Spotify started in 2009, which was the same year that Come and Live started, and iTunes Music I think was not too far behind, but or Apple Music, but back then streaming wasn't a thing,
Right.
And so for one of the ideals and ideas behind Come and Live was that we would remove the contractual pressures and obligations between the label, so to speak, and the artist, and we would just partner together to raise funds to creatively source and release music that was completely free. So the easiest way back then to do that was downloadable MP3s.
Right.
And so I think that was kind of the original idea. And then of course it turns out that, no one wants to download MP3s anymore on hard drives and on iPhones and whatever, but iPod shuffles, but it's like, we want to actually stream the music. And by then it was kind of like, oh, there's not really a need for this anymore, because all music is technically free, even if you have to listen to some ads to get it. But now so it's it felt like that was one of the early vision points, that the music would be free. And then once Spotify and Apple Music came about, it was like, well, everything's kind of free.
I think the core mindset still works. Like, as far as just a different label perspective. Because that does, I know one guy that wants it to exist right now, and I hope for everything he does. And he and I've had meetings, and I'm like, you're telling me the Chad Johnson story. Like, I'm listening to the Come and Live pitch in 2025, and I love it, and I'm interested. But go ahead. Sorry, say what you're gonna say.
No, I was just thinking how back then one of the great challenges we had was that everyone assumed Come and Live was a record label. And
Was it not?
it was not.
What was
it? That's the problem. That's why Come and Live,
Well-
I think, folded, because we could never really clearly articulate who or what we were. We would say we were a ministry, we were a nonprofit, we were a community, we were artists and creatives, we were kingdom-minded. We would say a lot of things, but I think it was too confusing for the average person, other than Come and Live equals record label, or to the artist, maybe it was Come and Live equals management or booking or something, because we were trying to help artists in the early days with their practical band stuff. And because most of us working with Come and Live had music industry experience, it was like, well, you were a manager and you worked in the touring business and you did this. So like, maybe we can help all these bands in all those ways. I think in the end that kind of derailed some of what we probably should never have been doing from the jump. But
because I was going to ask, what did Come and Live offer? But it sounds to me like, what did you need that day?
I mean, I think that
which is cool from the ministry like minded perspective of like what can I do to serve? What can I do to help that day? But also
it's not very practical. It's not very sustainable, which is what we found out the hard way. But I think what Come and Live provided at its best was a family of like-minded creatives who were all sort of pursuing a similar desire for artistic authenticity, and also for worship expression in a way that wasn't at all concerned about whether or not a song would work on the radio, or in any kind of CCM.
Yeah, because all those songs are 8 minutes long from Sin Hill. There was no radio cut of any of that.
No.
So here's a crazy thought that just came into my mind. Do you think the Come and Live artists, because obviously, you know as well as I do, there's a chunk of them now, same boat as Under Oath, same situation. Do you think they were potentially put under more of a microscope? Obviously, the scale is not the same.
Right, sure.
But do you think because of the like, well, Sin the Hill's going to come, they're going to play for 4 hours, and like we're gonna sink in. Do you think that created an even harder expectation? I have Star Wars in my head, the double the pride, twice the fall line, like as far as, but not the pride aspect, the like double the amount of like the Christianity worship side of it created a much harder, like, I got to step back from this. I don't know if that's the case or not, but just,
I mean, I think it's, I wish we had a Come and Live artists here to answer that question, because I feel like they're the only ones that could truly say, but I do think that that's likely a big cause for why most of them disbanded from faith or from each other, or from, their art. I would guess that if I'm trying to envision some of the places and experiences that I had with the artists, and I would guess that it becomes very, very difficult to feel like you always have to like one up the last really epic experience. So it's like,
gosh.
It's like, well, we had such an amazing time in San Antonio, or we had such an incredible thing over here. And like, and there comes a point where it's like, you've had so many incredible times that you probably do feel an enormous amount of pressure to like keep it's got to be, tonight's got to be even better. And we have to have, more healings and more salvations and more baptisms and more, whatever.
Which is a thing that was never on the Emory radar. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think.
I vividly remember a John Mark Helser's worship night that was just like, in my opinion, the most incredible like moment I feel like I've been in. And exactly what you said, there's no way to top that.
Yeah.
And I've seen John Mark in multiple worship settings after that, and I'm like, that was cool, that was great. But what happened at the Helser thing was nuts, man. But it's a whole different set of expectations, and we played a live music fest. Are you familiar with live?
Live?
Alive.
Oh, Alive. Oh, yeah.
We played Alive 2 years ago.
Okay.
Or was it? No, it was last year.
last year.
It was last year. Played Alive last year. And I thought it was funny. We were the only band that I saw that didn't make like a faith proclamation from the stage.
Didn't have a little altar call, a little salvation moment.
Right. And I was thinking, my first funny instinct was like,
Better step up my game.
no, I was really thinking, I was like, dude, everyone knows why they came here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the odds of 20,000 people, like, who's not a believer? Maybe less than 100. Now, people struggling with stuff, different conversation.
Yeah.
But as far as like, if you're, it's the church thing of, if you're a first time guest here, like, who in a situation like that is a first time thing? So if you go the Emory, the Anvil, and the Under Oath route, they're talking to people, because a lot of those would do, back then at least, something from stage.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking to these people like, hey, if you want to come pray with us, if you want to do this, like, this is where we are, no pressure. And I look at like Alive, that is very CCM, and we're the outcast in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing that model, but it's like selling Chick-fil-A to people that work at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which Chick-fil-A is the right analogy there. But it's
I
like,
work there and I still eat it every day.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, dude, I don't get that mindset, because it worked. Like, I understand it when it comes to like old school tooth and nail stuff, but I don't understand, like, why is disciple? Like, I don't get it. So when you look at Ascend the Hill, like, there's these levels of expectation when it comes to CCM. Dude, my level of expectation when I went to go see Ascend the Hill is, somebody better get up out of a damn wheelchair and walk tonight, or this was not good.
Yeah.
Like, and I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine that creates like a healthy mindset of looking at faith. Because if you're constantly looking at, what does Paul say the most desired gift is? To prophesy. If you're constantly looking for miracles every single time, or these magic moments, like, I feel like at some point, from an eternal faith perspective, you're like, yo, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the whole thing, right? I mean, are you in like a mindset that unless, you know, sister, what's her job over there, gets out of the wheelchair, that's a miracle, or are you focused on the fact that you woke up today?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Is crazy.
Yeah, and that was the thing, is like, I think that was our generation growing up, was we realized a lot of us were just chasing ghost stories a little bit. We were chasing the next high, but it was in the name of Jesus and the next Holy Spirit,
which is
high.
a crazy thought.
Yeah, that's a whole freaking segment on its own. I can't
Being
go too deep on
addicted
that.
to like Holy Spirit, air conditioning. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's crazy to think
Literally.
about.
Yep.
Because there definitely still is people, I would say, not to say all of that's bad. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, like, there's definitely people that are still addicted to that. That's a high.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes, I mean, if it's a true miracle, then then it's the most beautiful
100%
expression of God's love ever. But then it does become this weird, twisted kind of thing where it's like, okay, there's pressure for something to happen in a way and in a time frame that you can't necessarily control.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that with Come and Live fell on me, because I was beginning to, since I was already living this idea of radical obedience. I'm like, I quit my job. It's the beginning of the Great Recession. I'm just trusting God. I've racked $30,000 on a credit card, but somehow God's going to provide. I almost lose my home to foreclosure, but somehow God provides. You know, like all these things. I saw every kind of hurdle as an opportunity for me to grow in faith. And while I think a lot of that did happen, I also think that I just made a lot of really foolish choices.
You think it's the lifeboat?
Yeah, kind of. I think it's sort of like, how crazy can I make my situation and sort of force God's hand to intervene, or to force other people who feel bad for me, and then call it God's hand, I think could be another possibility.
That's a whole nother rabbit trail.
Yeah, it is a whole other rabbit trail. But
gosh.
I do think that God did supply in a whole bunch of really shockingly wild and unexpected ways for me and for many of us. But I think I began to sort of shift away from Come and Live as as an organization, as a nonprofit, as artists, because it became really hard to know how to help them and how to quote unquote disciple them when we're all friends, we're all peers. So it's like, hey, I want to disciple you, even though maybe I'm a little older. We're still kind of, I didn't know what.
Then we're going to go get a beer.
Right. And then we're going to go smoke cigars. And,
which is Chad's favorite thing to do, by the way.
Well, maybe some of the best discipleship moments would have been just over beer and cigars. But I think
if you take that pressure lid off.
And just get to know people and get time together. And we had some incredible moments together and epic times. But I think I began to sort of shift my heart away from Come and Live because I didn't know. I was never truly fathered, and it's impossible to give something that you don't have.
Yep.
So I was trying to father a generation of like world-class artists spiritually.
Would agree with that.
Without ever having been spiritually fathered himself. And it's easy now, 15 years later, or almost 20 years later, to be like, oh, I think that's what was happening. But I was just searching for a father. I was searching for a mentor, for a guru, for a guide. And when I came across Todd White, the dreadlock street evangelist, I was just like, dude, this is it. Like, this is the magic. And I went all in on pursuing Christianity as a lifestyle. And I had countless beautiful stories to attest to it, and wild, unbelievable miracles that did happen during that time. So I'm not discrediting it. I just think that it became even harder for an artist to shine and to be themselves and to express who they are when I was like, but let's go hit the streets and let's just go pray for people and prophesy and heal and it was just like I was constantly wanting those.
You can never turn it off.
Those like ghost high moments you're talking about. And so I'm sure that it became extremely difficult for an artist to be like, well, how do we like live up to that? Like this guy, and I can remember Joel telling me like, man, I have so much respect for you. I look up to you so much. You have so much faith. Like you're just so, you're so loving. I don't remember exactly what he said, but basically really honored me in that journey that I was on. And I don't think at the time that I had the awareness or the understanding to ask, like, man, how are you? And how does me being so focused and so fixated on all of this kind of Jesus stuff, how does that affect you? And how does that affect the artists? And how does that even had I been mature enough back then to say, how does this translate to you all? And I now can look back and like, oh man, I bet that was very hard for them to like stand up against, because my personality can be extremely strong. And so when it's like that like level of
when you're on 10, you're on 10.
It's I was just like, man, I love the idea of traveling all over the world. I love the idea of like, of just seeing God do all these crazy things. But the truth is that I was also living probably at the highest level of sexual addiction ever in my life. And I say that my kids hate it when I say that I'm a sex addict, because they're like, well, you actually weren't having sex with people, so you're not really a sex addict. I would prefer to call myself a lust addict, because my struggle has been fantasy. And so fantasy with, I wonder what it would be like to be with that person, or that person's beautiful and I can't stop staring, or I just want to look at porn, or I just want to masturbate, or I basically it's the narcissist finding ways to cope with his pain. And so I was trying to cope with pain of Come and Live not beginning to show signs of wear, and like it wasn't working and it wasn't translating. And so I'm just like, I didn't even know it at the time. I'm just finding ways to deal with my own pain and my own insecurities and my own fears. Because like, what do you do? Like, this is great when it's all working. What do you do when it stops working? And when Ascend the Hill feels that tension, and I think they're mad at me, and I think maybe they don't like me anymore, and I think maybe this isn't really working very well for them, or the Ember Days are like there's a marriage struggle, and like how do I handle that? And like I'm like, okay, this is kind of getting a little beyond my pay grade, and like I'm just gonna go like pray for people in South America, and I'm just gonna go to New Zealand, I'm just gonna go to like Lebanon, and I'm just gonna like
see, that's the crazy part, is because that's the person I knew until 3 or 4 years ago was that guy, and we were just like, how is this person like exist? Like this person was so good at picking music. He's so good at like being like a spiritual figure to people. And one of my main, like, I know I said the Christian business thing, and I'm reluctant to say this a lot yet, just because the more we get into conversations with people, I think this will happen. But my real goal is to, I really don't mean this offensively. Aaron Gillespie, please don't yell at me. I want to prevent another under oath. What I mean by that is I want to humanize people in spaces that are like put on sort of pedestals, to where the bubble never breaks to the point where they're just like, I hate all you guys, I'm out. Because if there's a place like this where we can talk to these people and humanize people and just realize, you might be in the best band right now, but you're still just a dude. And you're still just someone who's got regular problems just like anyone else. And I don't think that there's avenues for that. And as much as I liked that CCM thing with Chris Dudley, they're not going to do that. That's not their MO. They're not going to have real conversation. They picked Chris out of all the Under Oath people. That's who they picked, of course. Like, which, not to say there's anything wrong with Chris at all, but like that's the obvious only safe choice that they could pick. They're not going to pick Spencer, but I would love to have a conversation with Spencer, because for me, it's not about the like you're falling away from faith, it's more about like, dude, I'm sorry that people hurt you. I'm sorry that the like expectation was put so high. But if we go back to Come and Live specifically, what was the band that you were like, I can't wait for people to hear this band?
Great Awakening.
No, stop it.
Yes.
Stop it.
No, I remember hearing their second album and thinking like, I'm really excited for people to hear this, because I think it's going to blow some minds. And it did, even if it never took off.
I played on the first album.
Oh, nice. You played on the first album?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what'd you play?
Some random guitar solo on some song that didn't even make it because it was terrible. It was like the youth group written song.
Nice.
And like all the other songs Zach and Cole wrote, but it was so bad.
Wow.
And I wanted to be there to hang out, but I did not want to be there to do that. Because Zach's uncle, the youth pastor, was like, everybody's got to be involved that plays. And I was like, this isn't a good idea, because they really have something cool going here. And I had my own band. I was 16. I was like, this sucks. I don't want to do this.
I think Ascend the Hill was probably that band.
Yeah, sure.
Just because they were the starting point in my mind. Like, they were like Ben Chris from the Glorious Unseen tells me about this band that he's met in Tampa or outside of Tampa, Florida, and how excited he is about them and how thrilled he is about them. And from that point, it was like, okay, maybe this is going to work, because there are bands that are this good who aren't already signed to labels and that nobody knows about.
Which is crazy.
Right.
With how good they were. Yeah.
So I think that was the one that was like, oh, this band. They were both like the earliest, and we came up with their name literally on the hillside in Nashville where my home was situated.
Okay.
So that like there was
the house that I've been to?
No, the first house.
Okay.
So the first house was on a really, really steep hill. And I think that was kind of like a representation of how sweet our starting point was, and how young they were in terms of they didn't even have a name at that point. I think it was Joel Davis and the something, maybe, or maybe just the Joel Davis
and
band.
The Brothers.
Maybe I
they
think
were they're the Christian Jonas Brothers.
Yeah,
whoa! I never put that together.
I think it was the Joel Davis band, but maybe I could be mistaken now. But anyway, it wasn't Ascend the Hill, so whatever it was. And,
great name.
Yeah, and it came out of a time of prayer and a time of hanging out and a time of walking up flea infested Nashville hills. But yeah, I think they were. I mean, a lot of the band. I mean, most of the bands on Come and Live. I think every band I loved.
Yeah,
in a very special and like very. I was very proud of how gifted the artists were, and I was very proud of how willing they were to give of themselves and to consider going a completely different route and to do something that had never really been done before. And like, I wish looking back that I would have said that more. I don't think I ever, maybe I did, but I don't recall ever saying like, man, guys, this is truly,
you guys rule.
Yeah. You guys rule. Like what you're doing and what you're setting out to do is unheard of. And thank you for being willing to be with me in this process, you know.
Are you at a point where you look back on all of that very fondly now?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do for sure. I mean, I was looking through some pictures yesterday and on my computer and or on Facebook or on Instagram, one of those, I was just scrolling
on the internet
and on the internet, I realized that do you guys remember when ChatGPT was roasting Instagram profiles like that?
It's still happening.
It still happened. All right. I didn't know if it was a thing. Well, anyway, somebody told me that you know, you could do a Chat GPT roast of your Instagram profile. And so I did that. And I thought it was funny because it was super prophetic because Chat GPT said that Chad is living ought to be renamed to Chad is hibernating. And I was like, dude, that is so true. I haven't been on social media in forever.
Yeah.
And when I looked at my profile yesterday, it was basically just all like festival posts for the last like few years and a few random photos, and then you get into all that like Come and Live stuff, and because that's when I was
I'm about to go back on your
time.
Facebook and look at all this.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's pretty crazy. It's all festival stuff, and then it's like underneath that is me traveling the world and being with all these people and great moments and great memories. So I mean, hugely fond memories, but also an enormous amount of pain. That for a variety of reasons, but yeah.
But you're in a spot where now you can look back, at least on that era.
Oh yeah.
Even with the like life decisions people have made, whatever they may be, post from it. Tooth and Nail as well. Obviously, you're way more involved with Tooth and Nail stuff now. A lot of these people you're full circle with, just as far as working with again. But at least for the Come and Live, you can look back. So I'm gonna swap memory cards.
Nice.
We're gonna do. This is gonna be a 2-part episode because we've still got to get to the present day. But I'm gonna leave you with one question. Don't answer the question.
Okay.
I want you to answer it in the next. Once we go to the next thing. Could there be a 4th fest? Because you've got Furnace Fest. Nice. You've got. Don't answer. You got Furnace Fest. You got Iron Hills. You got Magic City. Could there be a Come and Live kind of reunion fest? We'll answer that on the next episode. See you later.